And so let's keep going in verse 12. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Again, in the Greek, children of God, tekna theou. There's no article there. It's literally children of God. But we know from Greek grammar that we just looked at from Dr. Vickers that the context is the God, right? The God that was already mentioned earlier in the passage, and that's going to be mentioned in other parts of this passage as the definite article, the God. We don't have to say it's a God, but the Jehovah's Witnesses aren't consistent. Again, when we get down to verse 12, once again, however, to all who did receive him, he gave authority to become, look at their translation, God's children. They don't say the authority to become children of a God. Why don't they do that? In fact, they don't use a lowercase g, because they know that, they know what we actually know as Trinitarians, that actually the context and the true Greek grammar, that's, if it's followed, is telling us that this is the God that is in question here. And so that's why suddenly the New World Translation agrees with every other Orthodox Trinitarian translation when it comes to that. But let's see this again. Verse 13, who were not born of blood, nor of the will of flesh, or of the will of God. Again, no article in front of God here. You can see it. There's just theou sitting out there by itself. There's no article there. New World Translation of verse 13, same thing. And they were born not from blood or from fleshly will or from a man's will, but from a God. Nope, doesn't say a God, lowercase g. It says God with a capital G, meaning it's assuming the same context of the God that was mentioned earlier by John in verse 1. And then just finishing out the other places here, John says in verse 13, no one has ever seen God. Again, there's no article. But the only God, again, no article in both places. So we just have Theon here and theos here, no articles in front of either one of them. When we get down to verse 29, suddenly, the next day he saw Jesus coming toward him, and behold, the Lamb of God, but literally in Greek, it's the Lamb of the God, theh. Okay, so now we're back to the God. John skipped a lot of thes between verse 1 and verse 29, but the context remained the God the whole time. It was never suddenly a God like the New World Translation. Again, let's look at verse 29 in the New World Translation just to see what they're going to say. Next day he saw Jesus coming toward him, and he said, see the Lamb of God. Doesn't say the Lamb of a God with a small g or anything like that. And then just a few more. Verse 34, suddenly we're back into the articles. Verse 34, I've seen and borne witness that this is the Son of God. The Greek says huios to theou, literally, huios to theou, literally the Son of the God. In verse 36, and he looked at Jesus as he walked, and he said, behold the Lamb of God. Here we have to theou, so we've got the definite article there. And then there's two more. Let's see, verse 49. Rabbi, you are the Son of God. Let's see, the Greek says, huios to theou. You are the Son of the God, literally in the Greek. So we've got the article showing up there. And then lastly, in verse 51, the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. In Greek, literally, it says tous angelus to theou. So we've got the angels of the God, literally, in the Greek, because we've got the article. So the point I'm trying to make in closing, and I've gone a little bit over, the point I'm trying to make in closing is that John doesn't have to put an article in front of God here to let us know that he's, by context, still referring to the God, that he is going to use the article in front of everywhere else. He's using a grammar style, and he's still in accordance with good Greek grammar of identifying subject and object. This is the conclusion, like Dr. Vickers told us. Subject, noun, object, noun, which one is which, are identified by, let me pull it here, subject and object, and which one is which is identified by this particular ending, case endings in the Greek, so we can identify that. And then when we get to the peculiar rendering of two subject nouns because of the ending, one of them has an article and one of them doesn't, which gives us our word order of which is subject and which is object, which then again is related to the Greek grammar rule. And let me just read it. The nominative predicate or predicate nominative, that is the object part of a sentence, drops the article in this particular style of writing. And we can see this in other places in the New Testament. It's not unique to John. The nominative predicate drops the article when it's written, but it retains it when it's spoken. So in writing, kai theos ein halagos, and God was the Word, it's the Greek order. But when we speak it, it's and the Word was the God, or the Word was God. Which God? The Word was the God. Which God? The God who was already mentioned in the previous clause, ton, theon, right there. Okay? And with that, I think I've covered all the technicalities. So next week, let's not get technical. Let's jump into the theology, okay? Let's close in prayer.